talked about this. Pay attention for once. Damn, do y'all know how to listen? And as always, guys, like, follow, and share the YouTube channel. If you guys like what you're seeing, leave some comments, man. We want to know. I want to know if you like what we're doing. You want to be on the show? Let me know. Hit me up at PeteVersusAnxietyPod@gmail.com. And as always, guys, enjoy the show. And by the way, did I mention to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure, because some of y'all are hard of hearing in the back, may have to yell loud or get a megaphone or something. But, anyways, let's get today's show started. Y'all have a great one. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome into another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety, the mental health podcast breaking the stigma. And mental health is really talked about enough. My guest today has a master's in psychology, and her previous experiences as a licensed counselor, her EFT/tapping and heart math certificates, certified in women's-centered coaching, also 11 years of counseling experience. Please welcome the one, the only Tammy Goen.
Hello, good to be here.
How are you doing? That is a mouthful to say there. Wow. So, Tammy, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself? Basically, break that down from what that is, because, man, that is a lot to say.
Well, yeah, it'll kind of segue into what we're going to be talking about today, actually, because straight out of college, I got my master's degree in counseling, and then I got licensed and worked as a counselor. I did that for, I think, 12 years. Mm-hmm. And people used to say, well, don't you get burned out? Isn't that really hard? And I worked primarily with abuse survivors, so it was pretty intense. But I thought I was, doing okay. And then one day I hit a wall, and I was not excited to go to work. And if you're a counselor and you don't really feel like going to work, that's really not very helpful. So I had to really, make some changes, figure out what was going on. I did that for another couple of years, making those shifts, and then I realized, I can't do this work anymore. And it was very, very challenging. But I, regrouped. I went to massage school. I learned that and energy work, which is a really good fit. Did that for quite a while. And then I was really missing that piece of connecting on that emotional level. And so that's when I shifted into coaching. And along that way toward that period, I was running into some issues with a business partner of mine and another friend, really having a really hard time with this event, this experience that had happened. And a friend of mine said, pulled me aside, being supportive, and said, hey, check this thing out, online. And it was called The 16 Traits of Highly Sensitive People. And I said, I don't know what this is. Sure, I'll check it out. And then I'm looking at this inventory basically online, and I'm looking, saying yes, 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 yes. So 14 out of those 16 things was me. And it was this major aha moment of, wow, not only is it not just me, someone created an inventory to put online.
Right.
It's also, it made me realize there was a reason I approached life the way I did that didn't always mesh with everybody else, including my business partner. So I took a deep dive into high sensitivity. What is this high sensitivity thing? And then as I was, heading into my coaching career, what I started learning was, or recognizing, was that a majority of the people that were finding me for coaching were also highly sensitive. And so that's when I kind of really shifted into, hey, this is a, an unmet need out there, and I really need to focus a lot more on that. So that's when it became, much more of a focus. But I've just continued to learn more about it, learn more about myself. And then along the way, I've always been very focused on the nervous system and calming and self-care and all of those things. I started that way back in college, because one of the things that happened quite often because of my sensitivity and not managing things quite the way that I could have if I'd been more aware, I ended up with migraines, both in high school and then again in college. And through that process of learning, I had a counseling session. That's how I got interested in counseling. I had one session and discovered, that was all happening just because I was incredibly stressed. And so I learned a lot about taking care of myself, and that continued, throughout my life. So I'm always looking for more information, more understanding, more self-awareness in terms of taking care of myself, and also that sensitivity piece. So that's kind of an answer to your question, but.
Yeah, well, definitely. See, that goes right into exactly why I had her come on the show today. Actually, Tammy and I were discussing that. What is high sensitivity? Maybe break that down for people, because it's great. You already touched on it a little bit. That is
Mhm.
exactly why you're here, because we want to discuss more about it.
Yeah, exactly. So high sensitivity is a personality trait. So it's not a disorder or a diagnosis or anything that has to change. It's just the way that, depending on the research, it's shifting even more so now toward the 30%, but somewhere between 20 and 30% of the population is actually what you could consider highly sensitive, as compared to the norm or the average sensitivity level. Everyone has some sensitivity to certain things. So some have very low sensitivity to anything, and then there's those that have really high sensitivity to a lot of things quite often. So it's a way that we're wired. We're born this way, just more sensitive to things. And what that means, though, actually, is that we process information and life, everything, more deeply and give more meaning to everything. So everything seems bigger, everything affects us more or more intensely, and things can get really overwhelming. Things can be really challenging because we don't understand how things are happening, because if we were in that position, we wouldn't do things that way. And then, just like when I was running into that struggle with my business partner, she just kept saying, let it go. What is the big deal? Just, it's in the past. It's not, done. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no. But we didn't resolve this. This is really important. And she's like, it's not that important. So there's, a disconnect in terms of how we process things compared to other people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so part of that is learning what that's like for ourselves, and acknowledging that that's just the way we are wired. So there are tools that we can use to make things a little bit less challenging, because the world is not set up for people who are highly sensing. I like that term better, highly sensing, because that's really what it is all about. Sensitive kind of
Yeah.
has that weird connotation, like, oh, don't be sensitive, especially for men. And for all the viewers out there, it's 50-50 men and women. It's not just, women are sensitive and that's that, just that stereotypical thing. It's across the board, men and women. And so men sometimes have an even more challenging time, because in our society, that's not really a cool thing, right? Guys
Yeah.
are just learned to taught and expected to be tough and not be sensitive and not show their feelings and all of those kinds of things. And highly sensitive people have really intense emotions usually.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
can be a real challenge if we're in a situation or in a culture that says, yeah, you're not supposed to be emotional, or have those experiences, just shut them down. And so people learn to do that.
Yeah, I love it how you say though that men are not allowed to, because it's very true, because a lot of times we're made fun of, oh, you're just real sensitive, or it's what is it, perceived as late, oh, girls are just being, oh, they're oversensitive, it's okay. And it's really not what it is. Maybe, it's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And
And
it's funny when you say that though.
being sensitive doesn't mean being overly feminine either. If
Hmm.
you're a guy and you're sensitive, it has nothing to do with femininity. Although those that are highly sensing might be a little bit more apt to embrace the feminine side. We all have feminine and male, masculine, feminine, parts to us, but it doesn't mean overly feminine. And yeah, I mean, as you probably remember, as a boy, somebody, whether in your family or in your classrooms or whatever, as a boy, you were probably told, buck up, be a man,
Hmm.
don't cry, don't be a wuss, all of that kind of stuff. So it's really challenging. I mean, even for girls, of course, growing up, they're always, I mean, we were born this way, so we've always been extra sensitive. And so you hear all these things as you're growing up, you're too sensitive, you're too this, and you're not enough that, you need to do this, let it go, no big deal. And then you start to, internalize a lot of that kind of stuff. And then we can get really hard on ourselves, which we tend
Hmm.
to anyway. So yeah, it's challenging for everyone, but that extra little piece for the guys is, yeah,
Yeah.
really valid.
No, I agree with you 100% there. So how does someone know they're highly sensitive? Is there like certain things that you like? I know you were going to that checklist. Is there like certain other things that you pick from that list that would identify that to people that they're highly sensitive to?
Yeah, and I would go to Elaine Aron's website, which is hsperson.com. And she's the one that did all of the pioneering research. There's tons of people that are doing research on it now, but she's the one that got everything started, and she's got a pretty lengthy inventory. And it's really, it's more of a self-validation tool. I mean, it's good to know, oh yeah, this is me. But when you can see it written out and be able to say, oh, there's all of the, just like that first time that I took that 16, trait list, seeing that it's out there, not just in here, not just my reaction, but 20 to 30% of the people are experiencing some of these things too. And as you do check them off, it's not just the number, like, oh, I got, 23 out of 28 questions or whatever, but it's each of those individual things. And sometimes looking at those is really, really helpful to have it, spelled out in a way that, you've always had this experience, but it's never been put to words before. And so you see this statement, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally me. And other people see it that way. And now I understand why, because I'm just wired to do that.
Yeah.
So,
and it makes it feel more like you're not alone. And
absolutely.
it's like, hey, listen, at least I'm not the only person out feeling these kind of certain things. Or, I'm not highly sensitive. It's not that it's not like that I'm over, whatever they want to call it. It's I'm highly sensitive, really what it comes down to. And, some people just can't handle that, because that mindset that's been hammered in for years is that, oh, we can't be sensitive as males, you're considered weak or these things like that, which it really isn't, which leads me to my next point is that, how can people help people, say I have somebody that's non-highly sensitive, like say I would be. How would someone help them, basically from the outside? What are some things they could do, to help deal with those kind of things? Because I know a lot of people aren't sure what to do with, and it's a lot for people to handle when somebody gets really sensitive and things like that. Because a lot of people are just like, ooh, I don't know what to do in these situations, just like any kind of uncomfortable conversation.
Right. And, as you said, any uncomfortable conversation, any type of communication, listening is the most important thing, right? So one of the things you can do is ask questions. And one of the best ones is, what is this like for you?
Yeah.
So if you get to that point, then you're increasing your awareness that, oh, the way I see things and the way they see things or experience things is different. So that's key to recognize. Not everyone needs to be the same, and not everyone comes from the same place. And then if you can say, what is that like for you? Then listen to what that response is. Then you get that understanding that, oh, they're just coming from this place. They're not trying to be dramatic or unreasonable or demanding, because we hear those kinds of things quite often. It's like, oh, you're just, being a drama queen, or you're just being unreasonable and demanding and wanting all the attention, or, whatever it is. There's lots of those kinds of responses because they're coming from a different place. So if people are given that opportunity to say, well, even if they haven't done a lot of research or reading and understand high sensitivity, they know themselves, even if they're not in that place of saying, oh, let me tell you about high sensitivity. That still, if someone says, what is this like for you? It's a moment to go, oh, well, this is really hard for me because, and they can explain where they're coming from. And if they have that terminology and say, oh, and because I'm a highly sensitive person, this is why. And they can give more information to help that person understand where they are coming from. But having that opportunity to share what things are like for them, for us, it is very, very powerful. So I'd say that's the primary response.
I just wanted to point that out really fast to somebody in the comment section. Guys, we are live currently in case you're listening to us on the audio side at this time. Tammy and I are live. Someone has made a comment that says, yes, learn and understanding with the heart. It's actually a good friend of mine, Ashley, is here in the comments. And she makes a real great point there. It's to learn and understand. It's tough for people to do those things, like you just said, because they say drama queen, or they go, oh, well, you're just being over dramatic. And it's really not what it is, and it's hard for people to understand that, because that's what the name they've been given so much is, oh, well, you're just being over dramatic, or you're overreacting about these things, or you're just, whatever label. Everybody likes to label things. I don't know why we always have to give something a label like that, and maybe it's just society the way it is. We just want to give some kind of name to it so it has a meaning, but it's like at the same time, maybe there's more to it, And I love it when you said energy healing, though, or energy in general, because I've been realizing that I found recently I'm a really big empath and things like that. And stuff like that too, so like it makes a lot more sense now after I started realizing that. I dug deeper into that kind of stuff and started meeting other people that do a lot of energy type stuff, and it's like it makes more sense, like why I'm highly sensitive to a lot of things and why I pick up on stuff a lot easier than other people, because I have an ability to pick up on people's energy a lot of times, and I can sense some of their emotions and things, and I can feel them at the same time because I'm an empath, so I can really tell a lot of stuff, and like I could just look at most people and tell. After a few minutes of a conversation, a lot of times something's going on, and it's crazy. So,
and if you are aware of that, like if you look back to my history with being a counselor, that helped me, immensely. But since I wasn't aware that was more heightened than anybody else, or that I needed to be aware to do something with that, that's how I ultimately got burned out, because I let too much in and wasn't careful with my own energy, and I just sucked everything, because we're like sponges. And one of the things they talk about for high sensitivity is that we're kind of the canaries in the coal mine, right? So like you're talking about, you can walk into a room and go, ooh, something's off. Somebody's having a rough time, or something. And I mean, one of my stories is that I actually kept my house from burning down one morning, because in the middle of the early morning, whatever, I wake up out of a dead sleep and I'm smelling not smoke, but like, burning, some kind of burning smell. And I'm like, whoa, what is that? And I start searching all around my house, trying to find out what it is. And then I finally find that I had a baseboard heater, and I shut it off because I knew that's where it was coming from. And then once it was light and I could look around, and I checked everything out, and the wiring had just fused into a big mess. I was like, well, but once I was like awake and looking for everything, I didn't really smell it. I was like, wow, how did I even know that was happening? So we are attuned, and that's kind of one of the evolutionary pieces that they'll say, this trait is here for a reason. It's sort of like the point, bird and the quails that they've got, they're checking everything out, making sure everyone's okay. That's kind of what our purpose is in some ways, is to be those gatekeepers, and to be the ones that are going to notice all that stuff that other ones are oblivious to. So that is part of that energy piece, is that we can sense all of that at a higher level. And we just kind of, our intuition is very strong. And if we're listening to it, we understand a lot of things, but we get those little hits of, something's off. I know this person needs something, or wow, this is a really heavy, place, or whatever. We do feel those things. So as long as we honor those and do something with it, then that can benefit us. If not, then that can really be a huge weight.
Yeah. And I there's a comment right here. I feel like this one applies to what happened to me recently. I had this weird sense of feeling something's going on, and then exactly what Ashley says right here. It says, we usually feel everything, and it tends to sometimes leave us depleted and exhausted. Exactly what happened, because when I had felt it, and it happened, and it was just like, I felt so drained. Like everything's just like, you just felt like all your energy is just gone. And it was like, you hadn't done anything else, but you're just sensing it all. And then when it was this weird moment I had when I was interviewing somebody, and we were talking about energy. And then all of a sudden after the conversation, it was just like, I was so drained, because it was just like, I was so in tune with what's going on around me. And it was just like, it just washed over me. And I didn't do anything else but had a conversation. And you felt like, you'd just been working X amount of hours, you want to say, and things like that. It was weird. And I never really understood what it was until now that I'm getting a little more deeper into it as I go, and I start meeting more people that do energy and all this other stuff. It's a lot more making more sense to me now, because a lot of the stuff, because I could sense it, and things like that. And when there's moments, just like she just said, there's just like, it just feels you're just drained. It washes over you. And it's a feeling hard to say. It's like, man, now I gotta go take a nap. And it was after I did a recording too. I was like, man, I gotta take a nap for a little bit. I got another one later on. I'm just gonna take a quick nap. I was gone. I was like, and it's like, it makes more sense now. But at the same time, it's weird to everybody else when you tell them that, because they're like looking at you weird. I'm like, yeah, I got like a spider sense. I can tell a lot of things around people. and things like that. And they'll look at me weird. And I'm just like, listen, man, I could just tell. And a lot of people find it funny that I can pick up on things like that. And it's like, that's what it is. It's really what I'm reading is your energy. I can feel it, you know. And I like to tell people a lot of times, it's like, if someone doesn't like you or something else, they'll tend to be pushed away because they don't like your energy you're giving off, which is, hey, listen, that's okay. They weren't meant to be here anyways.
Well, and part of it too is that what I've found, you know, in my life, there are sometimes people that they get the sense either by things that you say or maybe their own reaction to your energy that you get more than average, and that can make people uncomfortable because they want to be not read, right? They want to be private and not let anyone into their space energetically, right? So if they pick up that you are likely to get some stuff from them and they're not wanting to share, that can be really, really challenging for them too. But I was also going to mention, I just got derailed. You were talking about the drain. So there's two things with the energy drain. One is, you know, first having compassion. So you did the perfect thing to say, wow, I need a nap, and allowed yourself to do that. That's what we need, is to have compassion and say, okay, I'm just wired this way. This is the way things affect me. So I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to go for a walk in nature. I need to take this nap, whatever, and honor that instead of pushing through. And then you really crash. And then the other piece of that is that's one of the reasons that no matter who I work with, sensitive or not, I always start working on the nervous system and developing that really sustainable self-care practice. So that, and part of that is for sensitives in particular, learning how to manage our own energy. So saying, oh, I can be really aware and pick up on these things, and I can create a boundary, if you will, that says, this is mine, this is not mine. I don't need to own that and be aware of that, especially at the beginning, really consciously say, this is me, this is somebody else. I can feel that, I'm aware of it. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to absorb it. And learning how to do that, but also just all of those practices to have our nervous system calm down to start with, because our baseline is much higher than average. So we can't take in as much anyway, and we're more likely to take more in. And so that, you know, if we have a picture of all of our energy and all of the stuff coming in, it gets like this. We can't manage that way, right? Then we get sick, we get totally burned out. So we have to be compassionate, give ourselves what we need. One of the greatest things to do is ask periodically throughout the day, how am I doing? What do I need? And then follow through with that. It's like, oh, what I really need is a nap. So instead of saying, yeah, I don't have time, or nope, that's wimpy, or, you know, whatever, saying, oh yeah, that's what I really need right now is a nap. Great. You go and do that. And then you can be yourself again and do the things that you want to do.
Exactly. I love it, though. I'm going to touch back on something you just said, the nervous system. Why is it important to calm the nervous system, though, for us? Is that does that just apply to like highly sensitive people, or is that just in general?
It's everyone. And, you know, with the way the world is these days, everyone is experiencing a higher level of stress. And it's not just, you know, stress isn't bad. Stress is just stuff that happens, is what our response is to that stress. So if our nervous systems are calmer, we can manage more of the stuff that's happening, all the chaos out there, manage more of our feelings. And so the nervous system, we have, you know, two sides. We have the rest and digest, which is where we really want to be most of the time, unless we're running from a tiger. And that's when we have the fight, flight, and that's actually freeze or fawn. Also, those are in the same category, when our systems rally and say, okay, I got to be ready to protect myself, which is really important in those moments when we need it. And then the rest of the time, it should shift back into, okay, life is okay. I'm safe. Now my, immune system's working, my digestive system's working, all of those things. I can recover from whatever, but we tend to be way into that fight, flight experience most of the time. I mean, some people are so incredibly stressed that they're even still in that mode while they're sleeping. They're totally restless sleeping. They're not getting any good sleep at all because their minds, they just can't shut down, right? So if we calm the nervous system itself, then the whole baseline, it's this experience in our body that says, life is okay, I can manage. And then we can go forward and do what we need to do. We can manage. It's not that everything's going to be super easy or that we're not going to be sensitive anymore if that's the way we are. It just means that we have more to cope with. I mean, more energy, more strength to cope with everything that's coming in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any tips for anybody to try and calm their nervous system? You got anything they could use? Maybe some techniques you may think that may help them. Because you said even it happens in their sleep too, and obviously, if you're not getting good sleep, you're not going to be the 100% you at the end of the day.
And focus specifically on sleep. One of the things for everyone is important, I think, but especially sensitives. If you spend your last hour before bed and you unplug, just get away from your screens, get away from emails, anything, preparing. If you're going to prepare for your next day, do that like right after dinner or something, and have that last hour before you go to bed. That's something calming, soothing, restful, relaxing, something that's not making your head go 90 miles an hour, and solving things and all of that. Because then you lay down and go, okay, sleep. and you've been going like this. It's like your body's like, what? So ease into that. So in terms of the sleep piece, but one of the most effective and easiest things to do throughout the day, you can do this anytime you want, is breathing. And I know that sounds way too simplified, but breathing is super important, because with that rest and digest piece, when we can calmly breathe deeply, slowly, that is one of the indicators to our system that things are okay. So if we are breathing shallow and we're constantly doing all these things and okay, and then your body's like, what's the stressor? Where's the tiger? And it can't calm down. But as soon as you shift into that, okay, I'm just going to take some really slow, deep breaths. Then you shift, because your body goes, oh, no, it's really okay. So doing that deep breathing as often as you can think of it, but it's even a good thing to do the second you get out of bed, instead of reaching for your phone and checking your emails, do some deep breathing and say, oh yeah, I'm going to ease into my day. And then throughout the day, just for practice, it's good to do that. But as soon as you catch yourself feeling tense, stressed, worrying, unable to let go of something, whatever it is, just say, oh, I'm going to take a moment to breathe. And you go through a few breath cycles. And one of the things that happens without us even trying, if you've heard of the vagus nerve, a lot of people talk about that lately. It's the one thing that triggers every system in our body. And if we can slow our breathing down, especially on the exhale. So if you want to count, you can do that. You don't have to. But if you were to, let's say, inhale to the count of 5, and then you can hold it if you want, or just slowly start to release and maybe go to 6 or 7. If you go a little bit longer on that exhale, it really kicks in that vagus nerve to say rest and digest time.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point.
And if you think about it, I don't know if the readers or the listeners are, if you have kids, if you've been around children, but one of the common things for calming down a toddler perhaps is like, okay, breathe, just breathe. So if you think of how we use that without necessarily consciously thinking why we're doing that, and that's why, because it works. So breathing, by far the easiest. And again, you can do that anywhere. You don't have to close your eyes. Nobody knows you're doing it. Just nice, deep breaths, nice and slow, and then refocus. And then anything mindful is key. So if you're really focused on that breath and you're just paying attention to it coming in and going out, then you're totally being mindful. You're in that moment. And that's, again, when we go into that rest and digest. So anything that you can do during the day to keep yourself in that mindful place, meaning instead of worrying about what just happened, what happened yesterday, what's coming up the next day, all these things you have to do, take those moments to say, I'm just going to be, whether that's I'm washing the dishes, I have to do this. So I'm just going to pay attention to actually washing the dishes instead of thinking about what's coming 15 minutes from now. Or just saying, I'm going to take 15 minutes to go walk in nature and try to turn off those thoughts of just notice everything around you instead of using that time to, problem solve or plan. And then sometimes an easy one is to just pay attention to your surroundings without any judgment. So just say, what do I hear right now? And there might be things that you like that you're hearing, and there might be annoying things that you're hearing, but without judgment, just say, oh yeah, I can hear the cars on the road right now. Okay. Oh, I can hear the clock ticking. Okay, I hear, and just being aware, that brings you into that moment again, and lets everything else just go away for that period of time. So those, I would say, are the easiest and quickest things to bring into your day, as often as you can for that nervous
No,
system.
no, I agree with you 100%. I think that's great. Taking unplugging and all those kind of things. Because I have to sometimes. I'm so dug into social media with the podcast. There's sometimes I don't go on live, and I don't go, because I'm live on TikTok sometimes and things like that, trying to talk to people and things like that. But there's some weeks it's just like I got to disconnect for a bit. He gets all these different notifications coming in, and all these people sending you all these invites to come and do all these things, which leads me to my next point. Is I'm going to backtrack a little bit because you said boundaries. I'm like, ding, ding, ding. That's a great conversation piece right there. So with how to create good self-care, boundaries and everything like that. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. It was like unplug, man. Just unplug for everything. Turn your phone. Like I keep my phone on silent a lot of times just because I have so many notifications that go off, and it's just like I don't want to feel like I'm obligated to have to go do everything everybody wants me to do.
Right.
And things like that. And I know some people have trouble setting boundaries with people. Do you have anything you can help them with that kind of thing? Because like some people just can't set that clear boundary. Like, hey, listen, these are what I'm going to do. And that's it. And it's okay to set boundaries, personally, in my opinion, because you can, that's, you're just setting down the parameters for people. Hey, listen, this is how things are going to flow, man. If you don't like it, these are my boundaries. If you cross them, then you're gone. And then this comment right here, a fear of upsetting other people. That's, I think, is the other thing comes with boundaries. It's like, you can't worry about everybody else, and if and that's just my personal opinion on that. But it's just like, it's a really good point though. Yeah. Like I feel like when people set boundaries, they're afraid of just that comment right there, a fear of upsetting other people. And you can't worry about other people. At the end of the day, it's you. Self-care should be the number one thing to you. And I think me and one of my other past guests had talked about it too. That was one of her first points. She was like, self-care should always be number one. You should always put yourself first. And having those boundaries doesn't mean, because somebody's going to get upset regardless of what you say. Let's get to the point of that one right there. Regardless of what you do, you can't sit there and worry about everybody else's feelings when it comes to it, because these are your boundaries. This is what you're okay and not okay with. If they're not okay with that, then that's the hardest part, I think, for people, is to say, hey, you know what? You're crossing my boundary. So now I don't, you're doing too much right now.
And that's having compassion for yourself and putting yourself first emotionally, energetically, saying, I'm human. I have limits. And I know that if I don't take care of me and I don't set my boundaries and say what's okay and what's not okay and follow that, I can't be the person I want to be for everyone, because everyone wants something different. And I can't be all of those things. And I can't have unlimited energy for all of the things that people want me to do. I mean, if you're a superhero, okay, great. You might be able to do that. But otherwise, there have to be limits. And yes, for sensitives in particular, it tends to be very challenging, worrying about what people are thinking. Two different things: worry about what people think about us and wanting to be perfect, wanting to be just what everyone wants us to be, and then not wanting anyone else's feelings to be hurt. So we don't want to, step on any toes so that kind of stuff. Not that everyone else doesn't have moments of those, but that's a heightened experience for sensitives. So recognizing that it's like the oxygen mask thing, right? If you don't take care of yourself, you can't do that for other people. And it might seem on the surface that, oh, well, I just do these things, it's no big deal, but they're cumulative, right? Every single time you say, oh, I'll just give in and do this time. Every time you do that, it adds up. And then you're not taking care of yourself at all, or you're not honoring yourself. I like that term for, what if you do a check-in and say, what do I need? I'm going to honor that. I'm going to honor me and what I need so that I can be who I want to be for everybody else. And those boundaries are really important to even be aware of, as sensitives in particular. A lot of times that's really challenging to even have boundaries. Like, oh, I'll just do whatever everybody wants, so everyone's happy. I don't ruffle any feathers, just make sure everything goes smoothly. So I'll do whatever, recognizing that, oh, that's pretty open-ended. And, do I have boundaries? What are my boundaries? And how do I feel about having them? And being able to let go of that idea that, I have to please everyone, because we can't. Like you said, someone's always going to be either disappointed, at least, or frustrated or angry or whatever. And that's another piece of that, setting boundaries. If you're starting to do that, if you're making a shift on how you're going to set and maintain your boundaries, you have to recognize and be aware that that will push people, and you're going to have some kickback on that. Sometimes if you are working with someone, or you have someone in your family who expects certain things in a certain way, and you always, cow to them and do whatever, and then suddenly you start going, I can't do that anymore, and these are my limits, and suddenly they're going to say, wait, what? No, this always works this way. This isn't okay for me. And there's going to be a lot of backlash. So that pressure ends up with people saying, oh no, I can't do the boundary thing. It's too intense because somebody is upset with me. And that's reality. We do have to just give ourselves compassion and patience and say, okay, I just need to get used to this idea that not everyone's going to be happy with this, but I need to take care of me. So yeah, the boundaries are really important, and just identifying what those need to be. If you don't have very many boundaries, if you're not setting much, many parameters, it's important to say, well, what is important for me? What do I need for calming my system? What do I need so that by the end of the day, I don't crash? And then once you identify what those limits are, and just have that discussion with yourself that it's important because I'm wired this way. If you're needing extra because you're, of sensitivity, or just in general, because everyone needs boundaries, being in that place first of saying, it's okay that I have this, and I need to know what they are, and just practice and know there is going to be some kickback.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting though, because setting those boundaries, like you said, the thought process going through your head is, oh, I'm going to make somebody concerned, just like the comment right here. I don't want to disappoint people, fear of upsetting other people. These are all great points, because at the end of the day, you setting the boundaries doesn't mean anything else. I think it feel like you're respecting yourself more by setting these boundaries and sticking to them. Like, hey, listen, these are my boundaries, so you need to respect these boundaries. And, being highly sensitive, that constant fear is going to go through your head, just kind of like anxiety. It's like, it's just going to start cycling really fast. Oh man, what if somebody's going to get upset? Somebody's going to get upset about this, and you're always thinking of every other dynamic, And I think that's one of the benefits, though, being high sensitive. You're thinking of all the other angles, but at the same time, it could be a curse, man. Because if you start thinking too much about them, you're going to start going a little batty there, going like, well, I'm too worried about everybody else, and trying to people please with people. And instead of just putting your foot down and just say, you know what, hey, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore. These are the rules. If you don't like them, there's the door for you. And I know it's hard for people to say, because like some people are just like, well, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. And, and it's like, I was like that too for a long time. I was worried about everybody else's thoughts and everything else, But I just said one day, F it, I'm going to unplug it and I'm done. Like, I'm done. And I disappeared for a week or so. Well, where have you been? I just tell people I'm busy. That way I don't have to really go much into it. I don't have to say anything else. People don't have to ask me 20,000 questions. And I avoid having to feel like I'm hurting somebody's feelings. Oh, no, I've just been busy doing podcasts or something, just something to say I'm busy, because I don't want to have to try and take on all their emotions on top of that and think about, oh, well, so-and-so's going to be mad if I don't come to their live or this and that. And it's like, yeah, sorry, at the end of the day, man, I'm putting me first. I don't care about what you want and all your things. It's great that, you want me to come support everything you do and things like that. But I have to put myself first at the end of the day. And I feel like, I'm a highly sensitive person like that too, though, because like that was a constant thought I'd had for the longest time. It's like, oh God, somebody messaged me and I got to respond back right away. Or, somebody doesn't answer me like immediately in a text message, I'd always start panicking really heavy, really quick. And, and I had to teach myself like, hey, listen, when you send a message, don't expect that message to come flying right back unless that person is actively looking for your message to come. Don't expect somebody to text you back right away, and I think, like I said, it has benefits. Like you think of all the angles, but at the same time, it could be a curse because you could drive yourself insane.
Yeah, and those expectations are really good for yourself and setting those for other people, right? So everyone that interacts with me knows I keep my phone on silent. So if you call me, I am not going to likely be answering unless it happens to be right next to me and I happen to look at it. So I'll get back to you, when I see that there's a message or have time to listen to it or whatever. If you text, the next time I pick up my phone, I will probably say, oh, do I have time to this? And then I'll send a text. And if not, then I'll do it a little bit later. So people know that I'm not like call or text and get an immediate response. And they just know that. And that's totally fine for me. And I can't manage the notification, the dings and the pings. And I mean, all that stuff just, I can't relax that way. I can't focus. So that's how I do my thing. And I just let people know that, like, oh yeah, if you call me, just know I'll get the message, but I'm not likely to answer. It doesn't mean I don't want to talk with you. It just means that my phone's on silent, because I'll do that when I'm ready. So letting people know that expectation, and then having that for yourself. Say, I don't have to respond real time to every single thing. And, sometimes like I need to wait until tomorrow, because one of the things that's important to recognize for sensitivity too, is that because of that high processing intensity, it sometimes takes us a while to go through that processing and have, come out the other side with an answer or a direction or the way that we want to manage a situation with a person. Maybe you're having a difficulty with a colleague or a spouse or something, and you're going, okay, I need to figure out what I'm feeling about this. If you respond immediately, you might not be responding with what you really need or what the reality is, because you're either, kicking into those automatic responses of not wanting to hurt the feelings or doing the right thing or whatever. And then maybe you're going, oh, that's not really what I'm thinking or feeling or needing. So being able to have that processing time, because a lot of times you might have run into this as well, Pete. Say somebody asking you a question and you say, well, I'm not sure. I need to think about that. And they're like, what's to think about? Just, yes or no. And you're saying, well, I want to give the right answer, and I need to process it for a little while, because like you said, we see all the sides, we see everything, we bring all of everything into the equation. So we need to have that compassion for ourselves and let other people know that sometimes you don't have a decision right away or an answer right away. So being able to just unplug and say, I'm going to do this on my own time frame, not immediately.
No, I like how you say that though, because that's how me and my wife do things. Like, well, if we get into a disagreement, she's like, all right, we'll take a minute and process and think about what you're going to say next. She's really big on that too. And I always thought that was weird at first, but then it makes sense though, because if you think about it, if you're not quick to react, you're not going to say something stupid, or you're not going to say something that's going to keep digging you into a bigger hole. If you take a minute, refocus instead of reacting based on emotion alone,
Yeah.
It's what she always remind me too, because she knows I'm highly sensitive when it comes to that kind of stuff. I got to react really quick a lot of times, or I'll try to. And she's like, wait, stop. Take a minute, process that. We'll come back to it or whatever, and it's a big thing always. And whenever now I get caught or I get in a disagreement with her about something, I'll sit there and I'll think about an answer for a minute, and I won't respond maybe 5 minutes later. And I know a lot of times you're like, well, you can't wait. You can, because if you formulate the correct answer, this conversation go one of two ways. It could go either go better or it could go worse. You could react right away and heck, gone. This conversation's completely gone to another angle of this argument. But if you think about it, like you just said, you stop, process it for a minute, and you think about your answer, and you come back with a well thought answer, conversations tend to go a lot better.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be 15 minutes. And for sensitive, sometimes that's the next day. It's not always immediate.
Exactly.
But one thing to be aware of too, in terms of the way our brains work, is that we generally are not able to focus 100% on both emotion and cognition or, thought.
Yeah.
So if we, and there's a difference between reacting and responding. So if we're having a conversation and we immediately react with just a, here's the answer, and you're acting out of that emotion that it brings up, you're not engaging the thought piece that happens if you take time to process. Then you shift away from the emotions and go, okay, what do I really think about this? Not that you can't still be connected with your heart sense and your feelings, but you can have that piece of saying, okay, what's going on here? What is my response? What do I want my response to be? What am I experiencing? And then when you respond, you're not responding out of those emotions. You're actually taking into account all of the things that come in that we process and say, okay, now I can give a concise answer that's not just a knee-jerk reaction because I got wrapped up in my emotions.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think this comment right here fits right in there too. Whatever our mothers always tell us, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. I mean, it really applies to that part of the conversation, because if you don't have anything nice to say, don't jump to answer something. And like you said, it doesn't have to be, oh, well, 20 minutes later or whatever. It could be the next day, like, hey, listen, let's put this on the table. Let's think about this and come back to this and have a real conversation, which is nothing wrong with that, because sometimes cooler heads prevail, and you're not like quickly reacting. You're not saying things you can't take back and stuff like that. And I think that's great. I think people just and just like you said, when you talk about just breathing, there was a guest I had him before named Leroy. He's from Canada, and that's what he was using. He's a principal now, and he's teaching kids that's 5 or 6 years old about, hey, and he says, just breathe. And he asked him a question, hey, listen, what should you have done differently? I should have just breathed. And it's funny because it's like, people just like, oh, okay, they don't think about how much that makes sense. Like, same thing, as long as you just sit there and you think about it and then don't like give a quick reaction. Now you're not fueling the fire any further, and you notice the conversation goes a lot better because you're not adding more fuel to the fire. You're not adding more emotion to it. You're not arguing about stupid things, because if you think about it, if you're, and it's so funny because, when people do that, it's like, you can watch it all the time. He's like, I can't remember what commercial it was. I think it was the Orbitz commercial for a while. I had that one where it's like, oh, lint liquor and things like that. You're just watching the conversation ramp up because everybody wants to argue. But now I sit there and analyze the conversation and what's going on with people. Like, they'll start saying something to me, and in my brain, I'm processing at this point, like, okay, well, we go one or two routes in this thing. We go A, we can amplify this thing, or B, we can go the other way and just kind of just avoid it and not continue to give into this kind of things. Because old Pete, no, Pete too would have picked what it would have. Let's keep ramping the fire up, because I got to be the last say. I have to let that the last word in the conversation. Now, me, the wiser one, is like, let's think about this for a minute. Let's play the whole double angel on the shoulder type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I could go, and it's like, it's great. And I think at the same time, people forget that it's just like, it's okay to not have an answer right away. Like you said, hey, let me think about this. Let me get back to you. And some other people have other ways they want to do. Oh, well, no. Whoa, hold on here. Listen. You may have the answer right away, but I don't. I'm not going to give you my answer until I'm ready 100%. So we need to pump the brakes there a bit,
And in terms of not, hurting other people's feelings or being mean, or if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it, right? We can present what our needs are, and we can set our boundaries in a nice, heartfelt way. It doesn't mean we have to be like, talk to the hand or whatever. It's good. It's important. It's a good part of communication to say,
I'd love to talk to hand thing real fast, Tammy. That was great.
I need some time to process this, because I take everything in, and it sometimes takes me a while. I mean, we can say things like that, but we can also say, you know what? I would really like to be able to help you right now, and I need to take care of me, and with my schedule, or whatever you want to say, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So it's very neutral. I mean, it's compassionate. You're recognizing they need help. You would like to be able to help, and yet that's not going to work for you. So just, using your terminology so that you acknowledge the person's reality and set your own. So it's not that you don't have to say anything that's mean. You don't have to come across as, gruff or whatever. All you need to do is just be neutral, if anything. And, you come from the heart, make sure you don't say something rude or whatever, which is the reaction piece, right? But if you just say, this is what I need right now. I realize you're really struggling. I hear you. I feel you. And I don't have what it takes to deal with that right now. And I need to take care of me first so that I can be able to come back and help later, or whatever it is. We can do that in a way that's not, overly defensive and not mean, just matter of fact. This is the way it is. This is what I need. And I don't expect you, I mean, you can say this out loud if you want, but you can have it, in your mind. I don't expect you to understand this, because they're coming from a different place and they're wrapped up in their emotions.
Yeah.
But being able to just say, this is where I'm at right now. I hope you can understand that, or I hope you can accept that. They might not understand it, but to accept it, but this is what I need to do. And then I'll be back with you, or, after I've done whatever, I'll check in, or, good luck with that, or whatever it is. But if you're coming from a good, heartfelt place, and you're calm, and you're not reacting with those emotions, then that's up to that other person to deal with it as they will. And yes, they might get upset because they're reacting.
I love when you said that, being obligated to go do things, because there's a men's mental health panel that meets on Mondays. And I've told them I had to set boundaries, these guys. I was like, they got mad because I never came by. I'm like, listen, I podcast all day on Mondays. I do 2 episodes, and then I spend the rest of the day with my wife. So I'm like, this is my time to spend with her. So if I can't make it a Monday, and I told them already ahead of time, I set the standard for them, like, listen, guys, I'm going to be honest, y'all, I probably won't make most of these things, if any of them, because in the evenings, it's my time with my wife. Like, anytime during the week after a certain time, that's it. That's me and her time, and things like that. I don't really get actively engaged in anything social media wise, because when she gets home, she tells me about her day, things like that. And I set those boundaries. A lot of people like, don't expect much from me after X amount of hours. And these guys one guy was getting mad at me because he's like, well, you don't ever show up. I'm like, I told you ahead of time. I'm busy though. Mondays are my day, because originally when I started the show, it was Mondays were strictly the day I did it. Beginning of the year is when I decided to open up to a little more days, so I could have more flexibility with conversations with other great people such as yourself, And I was just like, hey, listen, like, I said them there, I still stick to them. I'm like, don't expect much out of me on a Monday. Like, yeah, I'm the guy who runs the Mental Health Podcast, but at the same time, you need to respect my space. This is my time. Like, I'm available doing these things during these time periods. You can hit me up anytime here, and it has not changed. From 10 to 4, I'm all available to talk about these things. But after a certain point, that's it. I'm done. Mm-hmm. And you guys choose to do it at the same time. That's up to you guys. Don't get mad if I don't come participate and you feel like I'm ignoring you all. It's like, it's not the case. I've already let you all know that I'm busy. I have other things I need to do. Mm-hmm. And, and stuff like that too. And I try to come by when I can with people, but it's like, most people understand that. Like, I set them up. A lot of people are like, oh, I thought you're mad at me. Why am I mad at you? I'm not mad at you. I simply set down the boundary that, hey man, I'm available between these times. If you want to talk to me, unless you're in that inner circle, you don't get the outside time. That's for everybody else. Mm-hmm. You can reach out to me, ask me questions. I tell people, like, if you ask me a question, sometimes I may not respond right away. It's not that I'm ignoring you. I just have a lot going on, and things like that. And it's like, I'm starting to learn better now how to handle it. Because before it was like, I felt so obligated. I had to go ahead and do everything for everybody. Oh my God, what are these people going to think? Now it's like, yeah, I don't think so. Now they set these boundaries and they stuck to them. It's like, nope, this is it. This is where I'm at. You got to deal with these boundaries. If you don't like it, you're going to piss somebody off regardless. That's my best advice, y'all. You're gonna upset somebody. Somebody's not gonna like something you do. Don't let them ruin your day, because at the end of the day, it's you. It's Peter. It's Tammy. It's whoever's time you is. Whoever you are, that is your time. And like Tammy said, she turns her phone on silent. I do too. Like, I'm like, listen, if you don't get it from me, and my boss hates that too. She's like, well, you need to answer. I don't actually have to answer. I ain't on your climb clock, so unfortunately, I don't have to answer you. I don't have to even give you a general response. If I look at the message and see it, okay, well, hey, congrats. You were a lucky one that got me to see your message. If not, well, hasta la pasta, friend. I don't know what to tell you there.
I know there's two important pieces of, like, the example that you had with the Monday thing. There are going to be the people that it pushes their buttons because they want everything in a certain way, and they're not going to be open to seeing things differently. And those are probably not your people in terms of, worth putting your energy into getting them to be okay. You just recognize there are some people that you're not going to mesh with, and it's not worth the energy to try to bring them around, because they're not going to see it. And then the other piece is, you're going to be, even if they don't recognize it directly, in a position of being like a mentor, in terms of showing, oh, that's what it's like to set a boundary. Oh, that's what it's like to have parameters to take care of yourself. And so, people over time can see that, and then that can maybe help them realize, oh, that's, maybe I can set some of my own boundaries, or, just that cumulative effect of, maybe someday they'll recognize, oh yeah, maybe I could turn my phone off once in a while, or maybe I, you act, you show by acting, you explain without having to talk about it, that this is how you take care of yourself.
Exactly.
And then see that example, and they can build on that.
Yeah. See, the one thing I didn't like, I'll touch on really fast in the conversation, was it was always some kind of gender or some kind of race that was added into the conversation. One of these people are having, I'm like, why do we have to give it a color or race kind of thing? I think you're just narrowing the conversation down to, oh, we're powerful, whatever. And it's like, I think we should talk more broad about the subject. I think I didn't mix well with a couple people. Like, I respect what y'all are doing here, but at the same time, it's like, I can't be a part of this conversation if we're going to give it a category of just strictly this. And then, it's like, you're doing too much there, honestly. Okay, let's just leave it at just men's mental health. That's it. Why do we have to give it some kind of like random title, this and that? It's like, I feel like you're doing too much with all that. That's like, you're doing a little too much. You're too much. You're narrowing the topic down to just like, you're closing out everybody else because they don't fit in that category. And it's like, yeah, unfortunately, fellas, I respect what y'all are doing, but I just won't be a part of this thing. I mean, more power to you, but I just cannot agree with what you're saying here. And I made that point once, and I knew it made people nervous when I said something. So why do we have to give it a color? It's the first thing I said to them. And I can tell you, everybody in that panel were all upset with me. I could tell they didn't like when I said that. But at the same time, I don't care. I'm going to bring the point up that, hey, listen, there shouldn't be a color to it. We're all men. At the end of the day, we're all men. Doesn't matter what color, what race, whatever you are. We shouldn't categorize it because now we're just narrowing down the conversation strictly to this. And I feel like when you start doing that, you start closing the conversation off to everybody else because everybody's like, well, I don't fall in that category, so forget it. I can't be a part of this.
What I see is the important thing there is you recognizing that, again, that's a boundary or limit, or recognizing what resonates with you and what doesn't, and being able to say, you know what, the mission statement, the folk, I mean, all of the kind of stuff, it's totally, in line with me, and yet the way it's being run or the way it's evolved or, whatever is not resonating. And so being able to say, yeah, I'm going to step back from this and I'm going to go find something that resonates more for me and put my energy there instead of finding something that you just realize that, oh, okay, I don't like this and I want to change it. And, you can, obviously we can always do that. We can say, oh, I want to put in my 2 cents and see if I can shift something. You can put some energy in to start with and see how that works. But if you get that hit after a while that you're going, this isn't going anywhere in the direction that I want, this is just no longer resonating with me at all, then that's a good time to say, yeah, I'm going to honor that experience for myself, back away, step out, pick something else, and then put my energy there where it resonates, because that's where it's going to be most useful.
No, I agree. I agree 100% with you. Well, as we get ready to start wrapping up, Tammy, thank you so much for coming, by the way. I appreciate being here. This has been a great conversation. I look forward to this. Like I said, do you want to go ahead and plug any of your socials, any websites? I'll have all of it listed down below, obviously, but, why don't you go ahead and let them know where they can find you?
Yeah, all of my stuff actually is on Linktree, if everyone's familiar with that. So just linkt.r.ee. I've already forgotten. Linktree. All my stuff is on there, but my website is just coachtammygoen.com. And, I've got ebooks, I've got information on high sensitivity. I've got a course for sensitivity.
Oh, nice.
And just a blog, a blog that people can read all different articles, find out everything, about me on there. And I don't do socials much at all. I'm on LinkedIn. That's pretty much it at this point, as part of that, what resonates with me and what doesn't. I just said, this is making me crazy.
It is.
All of the social media stuff, it's just not working for me. And so I closed my Facebook account. I just said, okay, I'll pick one thing that's the least dramatic, the least, intrusive, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am on LinkedIn just by my name, but other than that, I just don't do the socials thing. So the Linktree is the best way just to see all the different options.
Yep. And by the way, someone said that you're great. See, right there below, I posted the comment for you. Somebody enjoyed you. Really, really enjoyed having you here. Guys, you know where to find me. I'm Pete for Exciting, pretty much on everything from X down to TikTok, Which is funny because Tammy said I'm only on LinkedIn, but I'm on everything, unfortunately. I probably have to make the same thought process. But anyways, guys, as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or heck, you can even make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety, signing off saying, hey, don't ask how your day is today. Ask how your mental health is today.